Well, good afternoon, everyone. It is Sunday, August 23rd, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I'm just kicking off the second in the ongoing series of Ask Kirk Anything About the St. Lucia Vacation. Now, it's interesting because last week I had my good friend John Matre on from Serenity Vacations, and I also had Ollie, who is originally from Martinique, but was joining in from Prague in Czechia. Today I am all by myself. And no biggie there because I just want to thank everyone who sent questions in. We have just about the same number of questions as we did the last time. I think last week we had 11 questions. This week we actually have 12, although one of the questions is a repeat. And look, there's so much to cover about St. Lucia that I could be here for quite a while. And what is really beautiful about this is that this is going to be on replay. So, it's available anytime for folks to check in who are interested in the inside scoop on a St. Lucia vacation. So, without any further ado, I am going to jump into things and I will intersperse some other bits of information as I go along. Excuse me. So, get a swig of water here. Aha. So the first question comes from Marie over in the UK. And Marie sent me in this question a little while back. Let me just read through it. Kirk, my family and I are traveling to St. Lucia soon. Should we be worried about the snakes which seem to be rampant in the countryside of the island? And I think I replied a little bit tongue in cheek, right? Although not as tongue in cheek as I intentionally sort of considered, right? Because I was gonna ask, is it the snakes that slither along the ground or is it the two-legged snakes? But then again, you ain't gonna find two-legged snakes by and large down in the countryside because boy, the countryside is just the sweetest side of St. Lucia. Anyone who knows me knows that it's my favorite side of the island. There is just such vibe, such iriness. It's a peaceful simplicity. But boy, the people down there are so full of heart. So although I was kind of tongue in cheek and I didn't bother to respond that way, no two-legged snakes. I also thought it interesting, this question about snakes. And it's a pity that Marie isn't on, that she couldn't expound some more, because I rather suspect that there's a deeper story there. Especially since she came back subsequently and asked, how safe is the countryside in regards to reading about the indigenous residents being bitten by snakes causing fatalities? And again, there is something deeper here. But unfortunately, Marie isn't on to share further insights. But what I can say about snakes is look, for all of my time living in St. Lucia, the only snakes that I have ever seen, and the only time I have ever seen a snake, is driving along along the west coast going down to Soufrière. There's a spot where a guy tends to stand with a boa constrictor and people, visitors, excuse me, visitors will stop and interact with him, and he'll wrap the snake around their neck and they pet the snake and what's not. And, he sells some trinkets and people will pay a little bit of money. That's the only time I've ever seen a snake. Well, other than when I was really, really little and there was a zoo somewhere in Castries near the beach. And I think a snake was one of the animals that were in there. Um, and interestingly enough, because of my photography, I have been out in parts of the island. In Ancillary, you very often hear about snakes in Ancillary and also in Denry. And literally, Ancillary and Denry are on opposite sides of the island, divided by that central ridge that goes across the island, that central mountain ridge. Um, so by and large, snakes are not in the predominantly inhabited parts of the island. I remember one time going out on a photography. a photography stint with a group of St. Lucian photographers. And when we were done, one guy said that a guy from the community down in Ancillary said that, oh, he'd never bothered to tell us that there could be snakes in the area. And I was like, you mean only after the fact you were telling us? And he said, but anyhow, I had on my boots. And he went on to explain that generally getting out and about, what you will do is use a stick and tap the ground because snakes generally will not attack unless they feel threatened. So, for instance, somebody walk in and you step on a snake, then it's going to attack, right? As a defense mechanism. I remember again being down in this area in Ancillary one time, and someone said to me, "Are you walking through the bush? You're not worried about snakes?" And I said, "Nah, man, I tap on the ground." And he said, "Yeah, but they could be on the tree, in a tree on top of your head." And I thought to myself, oh my God, you know what? I better not continue coming down here to shoot pictures. But the buttress roots down in that area are just so stunning as they literally grow out of the water. So you get these beautiful reflections of the buttress roots in the water. But I also remember another time going with the National Trust, and we actually went into an area in Ancillary. We went with the Chief Forest Officer. Hey, Adams, big shout out to you. And he particularly came along because of his understanding of St. Lucian wildlife, being a forest officer, like I said, the chief forest officer. And he said that he would walk ahead because that way he would be more aware, like if there were snakes about. But I have never encountered a snake. Now, speaking of snakes, in terms of a visitor, you're not likely to have any interaction with snakes except for the guys on the side of the road, like I say, who might have a snake on display. But those are harmless. In fact, what they've got are boa constrictors, and a boa constrictor is not a venomous snake. In fact, the way that it subdues its prey is by constricting it. Hence the term boa constrictor. Um, there are two species, primary species of snakes in St. Lucia, the boa constrictor and the ferdinand. And the ferdinand is indigenous to St. Lucia. Now, the ferdinand is a venomous snake. And it had been a popular thing. I mean, if people came across those snakes, people in the countryside, they would kill them. In recent times, both species are protected. They're wildlife protected species. And it is my understanding that the ferdinand, its venom is used in some sort of open heart surgery. I'm not quite sure on that, so I may not have gotten it totally accurately. But I know that both are protected species. And also, something that the government has done in recent times is created a snake hotline so that if one gets bitten, literally you call up the hotline and you need to go in fact they will tell you where to go. In fact, you call 911 and 911 will then make the arrangements. Generally speaking, you want to get there yourself because you want to get there as fast as possible. They give you instructions as to what to do, what not to do. And it is my understanding that once you've gotten to one of the hospitals with the antivenom within 3 hours, your life will not be lost. And I know of instances of persons, I can think of one guy who had gotten bitten by a snake, and again, he was able to get treatment. So, Marie, I hope that that really helps you out. But like I said, I get the sense that there's something a little bit deeper, and unfortunately, you're not on for us to really explore that. But come along, enjoy St. Lucia. I also sense that you may be Lucian heritage, if not actually St. Lucian, maybe a St. Lucian who has been in the UK for quite a number of years. That's sort of what I sense just from the little bit of engagement that we had. But look, man, there's nothing like being home. There's nothing like the magic of St. Lucia. So just come on over and enjoy. Yeah. Okay, nice. So that was Marie. So that was my one and two. Here is my number three from James. And this one is interesting, right? Because James goes, would love to move to St. Lucia and start a cabinet and custom millwork business. Just can't figure out how to do it. I run my own business in Canada and would love to move it there. James, thank you. Thank you for the endorsement of St. Lucia. Gosh, you're probably the second or third Canadian who has reached out interested in moving to St. Lucia. I had someone from Australia some time ago reached out. I can think of Nabil out of New York who said that, he's been I think what's it runs a food stall or a food store, is a chef, something along those lines, in New York, right? Nabil is of Lebanese heritage. And he was just like, oh my God, I would just love to move to St. Lucia, get a little piece of land somewhere down near a beach and start a restaurant. And I asked him why St. Lucia, and he said, look, I've been, and the place is just amazing. I think that Nabil had stayed in the countryside. And again, folks, you will always hear me saying that the countryside is the sweetest side of St. Lucia, right? So Nabil had been over, and oh, there comes Ja. Uh, okay, so let me just get Ja in, and then we will continue. I'll give this a moment. Um, let's see what's going here. Let's see what's going. Yeah, I think I did admit. Okay, there he comes. Um, Ja le Divine. Yeah, and I'm thinking, okay, so um, is it Ja? Let me just make sure that I got that right. Greetings. If you are speaking, Ja, you are actually muted. Okay, I hope that you are hearing me, but okay, there you go. You've unmuted now.
Yes, hi Kirk.
How are you doing? And did I get that right? Is it Ja?
Yes, that's Jean le Divin. It's a French name, actually.
Oh, and that's what I thought. I thought it was French, which is why I said Jean rather than Jean. Yes, greet
Yes, yes. So, all the way from Africa.
Malawi.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm actually living in Malawi, but my nationality is from Democratic Republic of Congo.
Oh my God. Wow. Okay. Interesting. So happy to have you on. And I had just gotten into a couple of questions, and it looks like these are turning out to be in one at a time because last week I just had one guy on. It was Oliver, who was from Czechia. Well, actually, he's from
Okay,
Martinique, but living
okay.
in Czechia. So now my second time and another French person. I'm loving this.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You are welcome. Um,
Yeah.
So I'm just going to continue. I was just answering a question here, and then I will bounce some thoughts with you and also look at your question as well.
All right. So I'll be
Ex-
available maybe for 10 to 15 minutes.
Okay, excellent, excellent. So once I come off of this question that I was answering, I will jump onto yours.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so coming back to James' question, and let me just recap. Would love to move to St. Lucia and start a cabinet and custom millwork business. Just can't figure out how to do it. I run my own business in Canada and would love to move it there. So as I was saying, I've had quite a couple of people reaching out and saying that they really would love to move to St. Lucia. It is just such a simpler way of life, such an idyllic way of life. And I always say that one of the things that I think is setting up in St. Lucia in a way that allows you to enjoy the beauty, the magic of St. Lucia in an affordable way. So for someone who for whom the money isn't an issue, then it's easy enough to come in, get what's called an alien landholder's license, and purchase a parcel of land or purchase a home that already exists, and just go from there. Um, I think it takes about 6 months or so to get that alien landholder's license. Also, there is the citizenship by investment program that allows you to become St. Lucia and have that second passport. And it also allows you, it would allow you to do more business in St. Lucia than someone who is coming into the country, let's say purchasing property, and then hoping to set up shop. So purchase would have to hit certain monetary thresholds. So that's something to bear in mind. But again, not at all undoable, or not doable. So that's something to be explored. Um, I'm happy to assist there if someone wants to reach out to me. There are going to be certain legal requirements to be fulfilled. But again, like I say, very doable. So, James, it's a popular question. Again, like I say, feel free to reach out. Okay, so Jean, let me jump onto your question. Is it possible to apply for temporary or permanent permit while I'm outside of St. Lucia? If yes, what is the procedure and what are the requirements? So again, and I'm so happy, Jean, that you have come on because when I saw your question, it made me wonder what exactly did you mean by a temporary or permanent permit? A permit for what? So again, like I say, I'm happy that you're on so that you can share a little bit more. So all over to you, Jean.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, there is I think it's also depend with the country immigration policies, but there is some other people who it temporary permit or temporary visa or permanent visa or uh, permanent permits, which means is a kind of visa. It just depends with the vocabulary that they're using. That allows you to live in X country permanently or being there temporarily. So that if I can explain about the that visa.
I get you. Okay, so it is asking about a visa. Um, so St. Lucia, now, if you're coming on vacation, um,
Yes.
then there are, to my knowledge, actually, I don't even know what countries um, have restrictions in terms of visiting and requiring a visa. Um, Now, that would really have to go through our Foreign Affairs Division, our Foreign Affairs Department, because they would have the protocols on anything that has to do with external matters. Um, so that's one aspect that I can think of. Now, when you say temporary, because if it's visa, then there's going to be the visa application, the application for the visa. There's going to be a certain time frame for it to go through, and then once the visa is obtained, one can come into St. Lucia. Generally, that would allow a limited amount of time on the island as it
Yes.
stands as it stands right now. um it is my understanding that when someone visits, you are automatically allowed 42 days on the island, as a visitor. Anything beyond that, then you are going to have to engage with the immigration department on extensions, on what the procedures would be beyond that. So
Okay.
that would be for temporary. Now, are you just thinking of a vacation or are you thinking about work? or even living in St. Lucia?
Yeah, my point is mostly living.
Okay, for living in St. Lucia.
Yes.
Okay. Um, so again, for living in St. Lucia, now sometimes would you be seeking to come in here on your own, or would you be coming in the employ of um a business that's in St. Lucia?
No, it's like this is a personal initiative whereby you want just to change the location.
Okay.
Yes.
Um, so for that, in fact, it comes back to the same question, along the lines of the same question that James asked. And
Okay.
we've got, in terms of permanent residence, um,
Yes.
St. Lucia now offers a citizenship by investment program. So that is one way to gain um, permanent residence in the country, although most persons who are purchasing citizenship by investment, they're just purchasing it for the use of the passport. You know, if they're coming from a country that doesn't allow them as great an access as they would have with St. Lucia's passport, with a St. Lucian passport.
Yes.
Yeah. So would you be thinking along those lines, or no, something different?
No, no, it's something different. Not by investment, but just as I said, just a decision of changing the place. So living in X country and then you want to go living in another country.
Right. Okay. So, okay.
Yes, yes, yes.
So, to the best of my knowledge, that would be something to be looked at through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and all of the government's offices are listed online. So if you just did a Google search for Ministry of Foreign Affairs, St. Lucia,
Yes.
then that would bring up a wealth of information from which you could follow up.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So, actually, to your experience, do they respond to emails or when someone has inquiries about any information, do they respond to emails? Because you have a lot of government offices. When you send an email, it will never come.
I I totally understand. And the truth is I do not know. What generally, if you go onto any one of those sites, in addition to an email address, you would generally find telephone numbers.
Okay.
And generally, what I would say is if you call up, let's say, the permanent secretary, right? The permanent
Yes.
secretary is generally the person who heads that agency, that governmental department. So generally, that's a good person to reach out to. They may have a secretary, so you might also find secretary to the permanent secretary. So
Okay.
making any one of those outreaches should give you some sort of access.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think that is very clear. Yes. But do you have an idea? In Africa, of course, I'll go try to fund them as you recommend. But do you have enough in Africa? Is there any embassy or any diplomatic mission of St. Lucia
Any diplomatic mission of St. Lucia where?
in Africa, in any country of Africa?
I do not know. But again, the place where you would get that information would again be through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs,
Oh, yes, yes, yes,
because
yes.
they would have responsibility for all of the foreign missions.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yes, yes, all of the embassies. But as to St. Lucia having any embassies in Africa, I do not know. Um,
Okay.
I know that in recent times there have been efforts to create greater engagement between the continent and the Caribbean. So I think that I've seen something with a flight that's going from Barbados to possibly Ghana.
Ghana, yes, Ghana.
Right. Air Peace, I believe Air Peace is out of Nigeria. So Air Peace has also been doing a flight, possibly with Barbados and maybe with Antigua as well. I think I also saw something along those lines.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, yes, yeah. Um, so there's certainly been greater engagement between the continent and the Caribbean in the past couple of years, and I think that that's really a beautiful way for us to go.
Yes, yes, yes. This is something that I'm actually toward.
This is something that actually what I lost a little part.
Yes, this is something that I'm looking forward to.
Okay, okay, excellent stuff. Um,
Yes.
yeah. I'm curious though, what would motivate your desire to make that change?
Yeah, this is a very long story, but I'm just going to be brief.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I remember at school, primary school, we had a story and teaching us about the slavery and stuff like that.
right.
So yes, 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 and all they deport some of, or they took some of our brothers, sent them to the Caribbean and etc. So growing up, I was so worried about the point. So I was like, yeah, how come they
Right,
just separate us from brothers and we don't know where they are? So
right.
started now conducting personal research,
Yeah.
and it's where now I found the Caribbean, the region, and
Uh-huh.
started now identifying countries
Right,
in the Caribbean.
right,
Yes, and I started learning, like conducting research and learn one country after another. So
right,
far, I've learned about maybe 5 countries that I have enough information that I can even tell you about the capital cities, how people are living, things like
right,
that.
right.
So it's kind of a passion about the Caribbean. And now there is, because I'm also into diplomacy.
Okay.
So yes, there is that drive inside of trying now to start linking with my people over there.
Okay.
S Yes, 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 yes. So then, of course, I had to have starting points and to decide from which island should I start. And I started following the a lot of pages
Mhm.
on, because mostly I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn. A lot of pages from the Caribbean, but the algorithm was sending me a lot of content from St. Lucia.
Okay.
So yes, this is what I'm receiving. Like every day, I read news. I'm being informed about the country, the island, what is going on, what the prime minister said, this and that.
Right,
So yes, yes, yes. Instead of that, then we now wanted to experience it now in first hand.
right.
That is, yes, yes. As I said, it's a very long story.
Yeah, I get you. I get you. So far you have not visited the Caribbean as yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Yeah. Um, so um one of the things I have a friend who many years ago he spent time in St. Lucia. And I remember one of the things that he would do, you know how I was saying that there's that 42-day stay?
Yes,
So he would because he lived in St. Lucia for maybe 2 years, and literally every 42 days he would take off and go to Martinique or take a boat down to St. Vincent, spend a couple of days and come back in.
yes, yes,
Yeah. Um, because I think that in the first instance, it's great to have a temporary stay which
yes,
which which is longer than just a week or a 2 week vacation,
Yes.
But that stay really allows you to get a feel for the place, determine what are things that you could do, how could you integrate into the society, what benefits could you bring, how can it be reciprocal, a reciprocal exchange, you know? Maybe
Yes.
maybe
Yes.
you want to go on and explore some other islands. So those are just some of the things that come to mind.
Yes.
Yeah. So as I said, a great place to start is going to be with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and also you can look up St. Lucia Immigration, because the
Yes.
Immigration Division department is the one that's really going to have all of the information on being in staying in St. Lucia.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'll do that. So, the email, are you reachable to the email that you sent me the link and where we're communicating about my registration for this live?
So I think you signed up, right? So you should have
Yes.
you have my email. Yeah, you have the email.
Ah, okay, okay, all right.
Yeah,
Okay, yes. So if there is anything, and I can also keep in touch with you. So,
absolutely.
okay, okay, okay.
Yeah, because I think and I think you may have also sent me something through DM.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yes. So we're already in contact. So by all means feel free to reach out.
All right, all right. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other questions from you, Jean?
So far no,
Okay.
but I think I'll be joining you here and there.
You will be joining me. What? What was that last bit?
Yes, if you have another live, I'll be, as I said, I'll
Oh,
stay
I get you. I
updated.
get you.
Yes,
Yes. Yeah,
yes,
yes, yes,
yes,
yes. And then, as always, you're already in my email feed. So once I'm going to have another live, I'm going to try to do these like maybe once a fortnight, maybe twice a month.
yes. Okay.
Just depending on the questions that are coming in, because I really think that it's a nice way to go in terms of giving folks information.
Yes, yes, yes. Very important.
Yeah, yes,
Very
yes.
important.
Yeah.
Yes, 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 yes.
So I look forward to having you on others.
Okay, yes, I will. Definitely.
Excellent.
Okay.
So thank you. And I am going to pick up a couple of other questions. And I know that you said that you had about 10, 15 minutes. So if you need to jump out, I totally understand.
Okay, okay. Yeah, thank you so much. Yes, now I have to jump out because I have to run other things. So I already wanted to join you.
Okay, fabulous. So do have a great rest of your evening. What time is it for you right now?
This is after 9 p.m.
Okay. So 9:30. So that means that you are it's a 6 hour time difference because it's 3:30 for me over here.
Ah, okay, okay. Wow, yeah.
Yeah. Well, have a
Okay.
great rest of your evening, Ja, and we will just say to be continued.
Thank you, thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye now.
Yeah.
Okay, so there we had it. Another live engagement. Yes, like I said, last time it was Ollie, today it's Ja, and we will just see how this develops. Yeah. So going on, my next question comes from Danielle. Danielle from Charlotte, North Carolina. And Danielle actually asked a couple of questions. Her first was, are the tours and excursions that are offered around the island the same and cost the same? So no, Danielle. There are a number of tours that are quite similar and some popular ones. So, for instance, going down to Soufriere, going to the drive-in volcano, the mud baths, the waterfalls. That's a popular island excursion. Um, and even though they're offered by different service providers, they generally are in the same sort of ballpark figure. You also will have some that are customized, right? And then those can be anything depending on what is included. I can also share with you that we offer some island experiences, but they're all private island experiences. So in most instances, what we're doing is it's either a couple or a group of friends or family. And I think for us, our sweet spot is somewhere in the order of maybe about 20 or 30 persons max. 10 also is a nice number because 10 fits comfortably in one of the smaller taxi transportations that we have, taxi vehicles that we have. But we also have some bigger vehicles that are a 30-seater. So those will take about 22 persons, 22, 25 persons comfortably. Um, yeah, so again, that gives you a feel for the excursions. And also, just feel free to hit me up depending on what you're interested in, and I'm sure we can point you in the right direction. What is the preferred tipping currency? Um, US dollars is universally accepted. And I generally say to folks, in fact, I always say to folks, come with small change in US dollars. That comes in ideal for tipping and also for buying stuff where cash will work, where credit cards won't. You know, some of the smaller vendors do not have the ability to accept credit card payments. And what's going to happen is that you may get your change back in Caribbean dollars, hence the value of having smaller denomination bills, you know, some five, some 10, some 20s, maybe a couple of ones in there as well. But $1 is not going to get you very far. Just by way of example, I always like to use our local brew, our Piton Bear, as an example, and that's going to cost you about $5 Caribbean, which is the equivalent of $2. It's also important to note that the rate of exchange is 2.67 Caribbean dollars to $1. That's what you will get at the banks, or if you go to the Bureau de Change. But on the streets, the rate of exchange is 2.5 to 1. So 10 US will get you 25 Caribbean dollars. And in most instances, when you go into any local establishment, the price is going to be in Caribbean dollars. So while you may see a number and you go, oh my God, that's expensive, very often it's in Caribbean dollars, and it's always important to just verify. If it's in US, it generally will have a notation saying that it is US dollars. So if you don't see a US sign next to the amount, then you can expect that it is in Caribbean dollars, but it never hurts to ask. Um, Also, I again coming back to the idea of using smaller denomination bills, what that allows is that you don't get stuck holding a lot of Eastern Caribbean cash currency when it's time to head back home. Also, although the rate of exchange is 2.67 at the banks, generally it is inconvenient. You know, going to the bank or going to the Bureau de Change, the lines can be long. And even at the Bureau de Change, I think that there's a small fee that is charged for exchanging. So just in terms of easy functionality, just think 2.5 to $1, and that's what you will get out on the streets. What does a meal cost out in town? Um, what does a meal cost? And I'm gonna take this as you're out and about, an average meal out there. Um, think in the order of maybe 12 to 15 US an average meal could cost you. That's going to be about 30 to maybe 40 Caribbean dollars. Again, it depends on where you are, but generally that's a sort of ballpark figure that you can think of. If you're going out now, this would be in the daytime. If you're going out to one of the more popular restaurants, especially on the northern end of the island in the Rodney Bay area, then you could be spending more than this. But again, all of the prices are going to be laid out there. If you're going out for dinner, again, depending on the restaurant, you can expect prices to be in line with, or maybe a little bit above what you would expect from your typical U.S. restaurant. Um, let me just think about that. I'm thinking of Texas de Brazil, having a meal, paying maybe about $50. yeah, you could be coming in somewhere in that region. And then by the time you throw in, a bottle of wine, whatever drinks you're having, cocktails, so it gives you an idea. Yeah, but then that's for evening time dining, and that's more like your fine dining. Okay. Is it safe to call a taxi to find a place to eat? Yeah. I mean, any taxi that any official taxi that you get in touch with, yeah, you're going to be safe. Again, tourism is the lifeblood of St. Lucia. It is the highest grossing economic activity on the island, and as a consequence, we will be protective of tourism. So you're not likely to hear that something has happened to a visitor. And of course, having said that, um, one should always, whenever you travel, make sure that you've got your street smarts on, you know, and don't find yourself in strange places late at night. It's on late, that sort of stuff. But beyond that, generally you're fine. Now, if you're staying at a resort, then the resort can arrange taxi for you. If you're staying at a private residence at an Airbnb, then you want to be a little bit more discerning in terms of taxi service. But that's easy. I mean, like there are so many reputable taxi services available. I mean, an online search should bring you up quite a bit of stuff. As always, feel free to reach out to me if there's something in particular that you're thinking of, and I can help point you in the right direction. And even with a lot of what we offer, transportation is also included in our island experiences. Okay, your next question was, do you do Lover Cove tours? Danielle, I haven't the foggiest idea what that is. So I really, again, it's a pity that you're not on this call so that you could expound on what exactly this is. So it is. I have to say to you that it is not something that we offer, but I'm sure that we have stuff on offer that could likely interest you. So again, Daniel, thanks for those questions. And talking about stuff on offer that could likely interest you, let me just take a moment to say that this episode of Ask Kirk Anything About the St. Lucia Vacation is brought to you with the kind compliment of St. Lucia by Kirk. Yeah. And what do we do at St. Lucia by Kirk? In addition to these posts that I have been making to like my Instagram and my Facebook, what we do is we offer private island experiences. I actually started out with photography because lots of people know me as a photographer. I generally am taking visitors out and teaching them how to use their digital cameras. But in more recent times, ever since COVID, right, when I cut back a lot on what I had been doing, in fact, I stopped taking groups out, and that's when I went private. So I expanded from just photo tours, photo education, to private island experiences. I've got a wealth of knowledge about the history, about the culture, about the people of St. Lucia. It is something that has always fascinated me. So when I went into offering island experiences, I really wanted to share authentic St. Lucia, my St. Lucia by Kirk. So I take you, all of my offerings are bespoke, totally curated. You reach out to me, I'm going to get a feel for what you're interested in, what your passions are, who's coming with you, and really, really creating an island experience specific to you. And it's an island experience that touches the heart and soul of St. Lucia. I like to say we ain't offering the typical cookie cutter island tours. We go way, way, way deeper than that. And what you're going to find is whenever you are hanging out with Kirk, oh my God, you're going to be like a little celebrity, right? Because there's hardly a place I go and someone doesn't know me, someone doesn't reach out to me. It's a beautiful engagement. I like to say that if I go down the street and I run into six people, seven of them are likely to stop and say hello. So you will also be privy to this, be exposed to this, to get to enjoy this. Like my good friend Barry one time said, "Oh my God, I felt like a celebrity walking around with Kirk," and she called me the coolest thing. She said that Kirk is a connector. because she said that everywhere I went and I stopped and talked to people, I was doing some sort of connection. I was connecting someone to someone else, helping them to set something up. And that really is what I'm passionate about sharing the magic um, of this world in which we live, the magic of St. Lucia. Yeah, so that really is what we offer. Um, Send me a DM, send me a WhatsApp. My WhatsApp is 1-758-518-5800, and we can rock a party from there. The sky will always be the limit. Yeah. So, with that said, now returning to regular programming. So our next question comes from Nicole, and this one came off of Facebook. And Nicole asks, what can happen to increase spay and neuter dogs and cats so that there are less strays struggling? I love St. Lucia, but the animal situation is really bad. Um, I can already feel the kindness in your heart, Nicole. And St. Lucia does have a spaying and neutering program. Um, there is SLAPS, the St. Lucia Animal Protection Agency, let's just call it. I can't remember what the second P is for, but I think it has two P's in it. Um, Prevention and Protection Society, maybe it is St. Lucia Animal Prevention and Protection Society. I'm just sort of guessing, right? But SLAPS is the name. And I think maybe once or twice a year, and someone can correct me if I didn't get this quite right, that there's a team that comes in and does some spaying and neutering of animals. There's also a program of find a home for and generally it is for a dog. So you have this offering where a visitor will be invited to take an animal back to the US or to Canada. I don't know if they're sending to the UK as well, to take a dog back because there's a home waiting for this animal. So that's a program that St. Lucia also has in place. So while, yes, there are quite a number of strays about, there are some systems in place for the humane existence of those strays. I can think about the north of the island, one lady who I very often see out and about feeding the dogs. She will come out with food and is laying it out for the dogs and making sure that they aren't fighting with one another, all that sort of stuff. So just sharing some of that actually happens in terms of animal protection services here in St. Lucia. So once again, Nicola, thank you so very much for your question. And I hope that this has put your mind a little bit at ease, right, in terms of what you have called a really bad situation. Um, this next question came in from Isabella over in the UK. And Isabella asked, and let me just come back around to it. What currency do I need to tip the stuff at the hotels? And she says that she's from the UK. Okay, so Isabella, because we are pegged to the US dollar, US dollars are always the best foreign currency to come with. And I would say US dollars rather than sterling, rather than British pounds or the euro, because those move on a fluctuating scale. And also, a typical vendor will not have any idea of what the rate is on any particular day. And because the rate is subject to change, then one, you may flat out be told, sorry, we don't accept this currency, or you could receive a rate that is really, really unfavorable to you. So I would say stick with US dollars. US dollars, or you could also come in with Caribbean dollars because you're doing an exchange in any event, so whether you change from sterling to US dollars, or you convert from sterling to Caribbean to Eastern Caribbean currency, it's all a conversion that you have to do. However, I can say to you that the preferred currency would be US dollars. So once again, thanks for that question. Um, that just about takes care of all of the questions that came in. And I think that we handled this in really good time because it is now 3:49. I generally like to be on for about an hour or so. So there's just about 10 more minutes before we get to the top of the hour. I also have another topic here, weather in St. Lucia. And this is, while I have not received this as yet as a question from anyone who has been posing questions over these last two episodes, what's the weather going to be like? Um, is it going to rain? Is the rain going to ruin my vacation? These are questions. In fact, this has been the most popular question that I have received in my many, many, many years of being in the tourism business. And I always like to say to folks that just ignore whatever you see regarding the weather. In fact, someone reached out and asked me something some time ago about the weather. And I went out and recorded a video. And I always remember that when I checked the weather report, it said that there was an 85% chance of rain. And actually, on my phone, it was showing the rain coming down. And that's so misleading, right? Because I went out that day while the day was overcast. I don't think that there was 5 minutes of rain. Um, so it's important to note that, especially when you see percentage chance of rain, I find that that's very misleading because it leads one to think that that's how much it is going to rain for the day. So when you see 85% chance of rain, you go, oh my God, okay, so that means that my day is going to be ruined because it's going to be raining for the entire day. But that really is not the case. This really speaks to the probability of rain, and this is speaking to the probability of rain right across the island. Now, it is important to note that the northern and southern ends of the island are the narrowest part of the island. We get a lot of relief rainfall here in St. Lucia. And what is relief rainfall? As the winds come off the Atlantic Ocean and they hit our mountain ranges, they tend to rise up. And that rising up of the wind creates condensation. So on the other side of the mountain, that condensation generally precipitates out as in the form of rainfall. So you'll find that the center part of the island is the greener side of the island. It's the wetter side of the island. But the north and southern ends of the island, and the northern end of the island is where the hotels are really concentrated. These parts of the island are narrower, and as a consequence, there are no mountain ranges there. So they do get less rain. Um, Also, the other thing to note about the rain in St. Lucia is that generally the rain just comes down in little bursts. So I like to say to folks, if you don't like the weather, have another drink. Give it 5 minutes because it comes down in a burst. Bang, it's down. 5 minutes and it's cleared up. I also find that early in the morning, the rains tend to come down, especially in the rainy season. And rainy season is June through November, which also is the hurricane season. And hurricanes, can be a cause for concern. But the beautiful thing is, because of how low down we are, um, uh, in terms of being closer to the equator, we are not as impacted by hurricanes as islands that are further north. Because what happens is because the Earth is tilted on its axis, as the systems come across the Atlantic, they tend to veer northwards. So, generally, in most instances, St. Lucia and islands that are further south are generally missed. They do not get the brunt of the storms or even get the storms when those storms impact islands that are further north. So those are a couple of things to bear in mind about the weather in St. Lucia. And it is why I always say to folks, just absolutely ignore the weather forecast because it's not likely to dampen your vacation. I mean, you could have a situation where there's a hurricane and then that's a completely different kettle of fish. But even when there is a hurricane, one of the things I have found is that our power supply company is really, really efficient. So generally, I have seen within 6 hours of a storm, that power is restored. It might not be restored. In fact, it likely will not be restored across the island. But the most populated sites of the island generally have power restored. And many of the hotels have backup generators. So could there be some discomfort, some disruption of service and services? Absolutely. Should there be a hurricane? But is it likely to be life threatening? Very, very unlikely. And even now, some of the resorts have a hurricane, a hurricane insurance package, we might call it. So that if you're impacted because of a hurricane, then they're going to give you back whatever number of days, whatever the case may be. And again, why do they do this? Why can they so freely do this? Because it hardly ever happens, right? So that's just to really allay any concerns that one might have regarding the weather in St. Lucia. Like I say, not a cause for concern. And even when it rains, I like to say to folks, it's wet, but it's warm, and that we don't really have rain in this neck of the woods, but we have bouts of liquid sunshine. That's how I like to think of it. Because the rain doesn't stop you. The rain doesn't stop the activity. In fact, in a lot of instances, folks will say that they just find it nice and refreshing. It cools things down, and then bang, off they go again. Yeah. So that's just a little bit in terms of the weather in St. Lucia, what you can expect, and why it is so important to absolutely ignore the weather report. And I also invite folks to give me some feedback on this. Tell me what your experience has been like in terms of the weather in St. Lucia. Is it what I have described? Is it something different? Share in the comments. Let us know. Yeah. Okay, so folks, this has been another lovely episode of Ask Kirk Anything About a St. Lucia Vacation. And I would really love to get feedback on what your thoughts are about these. Is it something that you would like to see me continue doing? And um, again, what are your most burning questions? Just bring them on, and I will continue to rock this party for as long as folks are feeling the vibes on it. But again, for me, it always is about sharing the magic of St. Lucia, my St. Lucia by Kirk, I love to call it, right? But really, just helping you to know before you actually go. So, with that said, let me thank you once again so very much for coming and spending some time with me on yet another Ask Kirk Anything About the St. Lucia Vacation. And until the very next one, as always, you know how it goes. Here's saying, Kirk out, boom. Yes, I.